How can this rickety old tree stand still be useful? There's no way deer will be up and moving around in this wind. These are some of the negative thoughts I had during my deer season, before things quickly changed for the better. Stick around and I'll show you how I powered through the doldrums of a slow season, changed my game plan, and ended up with some venison on the ground. Whew. To say I put the effort in this season is a complete understatement. I was in the woods every chance I got. Drive, hike, climb, set up camera gear, sit, wait, pack up, climb down, hike, drive. Over and over and over. It's really hard to keep the motivation when you know the deer are moving near your stand, but they just aren't quite coming into range. I was very good at staying silent during my setup, and I mixed silent sits with some rattling sessions as well later on in the season. I let some smaller bucks walk, but I knew there were bigger ones out there. It was reassuring to see movement, but still frustrating when they were just out of reach. I needed to make a change if I was going to be successful. I decided to put on my hip waders and venture closer in towards bedding areas. I knew the recovery was going to be a nightmare, but I did what I had to do and began a search for a better spot.
With a well-used deer trail like that, it's really hard not to set up in a spot near it. So last night I came to a new spot that I hadn't hunted before, about 20 minutes west of where I live. This is my first year hunting the spot, and so far I've seen more deer than I normally see in a season, but it's mostly on camera. Not a lot of it's during the daytime. So last night I decided to venture deeper into the woods because all of the deer that I'm seeing come by my stand are coming by at night. So I figured if I could get a little bit closer to their bedding area, hopefully I'd have a chance at a daytime shot. So I humped through a marsh yesterday before the hunt to find this old tree stand that I'm not normally a fan of sitting in because you never know, you can't really trust it. Wood gets rotten, shoddy craftsmanship, but it looked pretty good. I also had a safety harness. Decided to go up in there and had a nice little evening sit. I showed up later than I normally do. Sunset was at 16:35 last night. I was in the stand at about 15:35 and it took about half an hour to get through the swamp to the stand. I had found the stand previously in the season, but I'd never hunted it or found a straight cut path to it. Didn't really do much for grunting or rattling, just figured since I'd never been to the spot before and there was a huge, really well used deer trail, I figured just setting up there and being quiet was probably my best bet. This time of year, rut I think is pretty much over. I'm just looking for pattern deer moving from bedding to feed. Didn't see anything, thought that was it for the hunt, so I started packing up. Packed up my big camera first, packed up my smaller camera, got everything sorted out. So I'm sitting at the top of the stand, my bag is fully zipped, I still have my bow, but I don't have an arrow nocked, and I hear going through the reeds. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. There's still legal light. I was packing up early because I needed to try to get out of this place, and it was a pretty long walk through the marsh. So I wanted to get out with a little bit of sunlight left. Anywho, I was all packed up just as the deer came out. Didn't even have a release. Managed to get an arrow nocked. I drew just with my fingers. It was at about 8 yards. It was dark, but I could see just enough, and let the arrow fly. The buck jumped, and again it ran. Didn't sound like it ran far, but I decided to just go home for the night and track it in the morning. I found the arrow right away. Really good blood on it. It was that bright bubbly stuff which is indicative of a lung shot. So that was good. Anywho, went home, had a horrible sleep because all I wanted to do was come try to find this deer. And here I am. Let's go look. So there's the stand. Buck was standing right there behind the tree. And there's the arrow still on the ground.
It's hard to explain the feeling of tracking a deer to non-hunters. You should be happy because it's the end of a successful hunt, but it's really just the start of another one. Hunters tend to second guess their shot placements during a difficult track, and there's just a feeling of general stress and worry until you find your animal. Nobody ever wants to wound a deer and not recover it, and when you're hunting in thick cover like this, these fears are all just amplified. On this specific track, there was very little blood. Luckily, there was enough to confirm the initial direction of travel, but there were hundreds of different trails this buck could have gone. I was beginning to get a little bit worried, but I was hoping luck was going to be on my side.
Yes! Yes! This terrain is nasty. Water up to my knees, twigs everywhere, but a nice little deer on the ground. Whew. This buck walked out last night, 5 minutes before last light, 5 minutes after I had started packing up. I couldn't not shoot it because I really, really like venison. Unfortunately, I didn't get the shot on cam, but hunting is unpredictable. So here we are, nice buck down and a nice freezer full of meat once again. Right after I shot this deer, it ran about 20 to 30 yards and it stopped. I didn't hear any crashing or anything, and there's tons of twigs and branches, and it was near a marsh. But I really wanted to get out of here before it was fully dark because I'm pretty deep in the woods. So I got out of the stand. I ended up bumping it further into the marsh, but I just ignored it and I kept going. Got out and went to bed. Didn't have much of a sleep because all I wanted to do was come back in the woods and track. But I came out this morning. I went back to the tree stand where I shot it. Had a nice look at the arrow, which I left in the ground. Good amount of blood on it. There was a little bit of blood on the ground to trail it, but really not a whole lot. I was just kind of going based off where I thought the deer might go, where I thought I heard the deer go, and where all the deer sign was. So there's some pretty thick trails through the marsh and through the woods here, and I just followed the thickest one, and sure enough, ended up finding this guy in the middle of a marsh, kind of racked up around a tree. I hauled him out of the marsh so I could process him on some dry ground, which I still have to do, but it was definitely lucky to find him where I did. I'm extremely grateful that I did.
Another year, another deer, and the circle of life continues. Thanks for watching, and happy hunting.